Thank you, Mark, and thank you to everybody here. Good morning. Whoop. One ahead. There we go. When we talk about the future of federal financial management, very often we focus on technology, right? We'll talk about intelligent automation, or we'll talk about robotics. Or we'll focus on organization. We'll talk about shared service provision. Or we'll talk about centers of excellence. I'd like to build on the theme that Dave Mader started with, that when we think about the future, we have to think broader than that. We have to think more expansively than that. We have to acknowledge the huge role that federal financial management plays in public attitudes about government. Because at its core, at the very center of federal financial management, we're talking about the expenditure of $4 trillion of public funds. We're talking about activities and interactions that affect every American, whether they're paying taxes, receiving benefits, investing in Treasury securities, or simply asking for information. It touches all Americans. Now, it's really from that perspective, that very public-facing perspective, that we developed what we call the financial management vision about a year and a half ago. And what I'd like to do today is give you an update. How much progress have we made in 18 months towards that vision? And also, how do we use it? How do we use it to manage all the activities that we do and that the whole community does in financial management? But before I do that, I would like to set the stage and explain why, really answer the why question. Why did we develop a vision, and how do we use it? Trust. Trust is really what motivated us to develop the vision. Because the foundation of all financial management is trust. And of all the founding fathers, perhaps it was Alexander Hamilton that best understood the relationship between good financial management and public trust. His first act in 1789 as the new Secretary of the brand new Treasury was for the federal government to assume responsibility for the $80 million of debt incurred by the states, or the colonies at the time, in fighting the Revolution. He often referred to that as the price of liberty. He knew the only way he could establish trust in the federal government is if the government paid back that debt on time and in full. He also knew, a very important point, that a large portion of that debt was actually paid to soldiers who fought in the Revolution. So this concept of full faith and credit of the United States is really at the core of federal financial management. And that's really what motivated us in developing this vision, because it really links, this issue of trust is what links our work, our daily work, to the citizens we serve. And those citizens have expectations that are growing every day. Expectations for the quality of service and expectations for efficiency. And the reason is, as consumers, we are seeing an increase in the quality of service we get from our commercial providers. All of us are experiencing the same thing. We can order merchandise online, have it delivered to our front door the next day, usually at a price cheaper than if we go down the street to purchase it. We can send money to our kids from our smartphones across the country. They have access to the funds in real time. Or we can have questions about our life insurance policy. We can get them answered at 10 o'clock at night. The citizens are asking, why can't the government do that? So clearly a part of this vision is meeting those expectations. A vision for the future has to be a North Star that helps us navigate an increasingly complex world. Today, the core processes, as you've learned, the core processes of financial management are being transformed. FinTech, financial technology, is offering new payment methods, things like real-time payments, mobile payments, digital wallets, cryptocurrencies. They're changing the way Americans move money. Back office technologies like robotics, artificial intelligence, chatbots, natural language, blockchain are changing how we process transactions. How do you pick the right innovation? And more difficult, how do you apply that innovation in a landscape as complex as the federal government? Treasury provides certain central services and we have policy responsibility, but a large part of financial management is performed in 200 plus federal organizations that has its own unique budgetary and programmatic priorities. So to be a North Star that motivates action, the vision really has to be universally accepted. It has to remain constant over a multi-year, perhaps a 10-year period, if you need to affect change in some of the systems that are as big as the ones we're talking about. And it has to be independent of a technological or an organizational choice. And finally, a vision for the future has to resonate with the people who do the work of financial management. Every year, the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey finds that 90% or more of federal employees feel their work is important. And the millennial generation, hopefully our younger and newer employees, are often called the purpose-driven generation. They want jobs that offer a strong sense of meaning, such as addressing the big issues of the day, issues like social justice, public health, environmental protection, economic equality. So a vision for the future has to be more. It has to be more than a statement of direction. It has to be a statement of purpose. Now, what I'd like to do is get into the details and explain how we took these 4 big themes and developed a vision statement, and then go into pretty decent detail about how we use it and the results we have so far. By now, you've probably seen the vision before, but let me repeat it. The first thing you'll notice, it is written from the citizen's perspective. It's not a description of what we plan to do. It's a description of what the citizens expect of us. The citizens pay taxes. They expect the government to be efficient. The citizens need financial information. They expect it to be accessible and, most importantly, accurate. And the citizens pay fees and receive benefits. That interaction should be as modern as their interaction with their bank or commercial institution. Let me describe the landscape. And this is the range of financial activities that are now being driven by the vision statement. The scale of some of these operations is vast. Financing the federal government involves 325 auctions a year that raise $12 trillion to fund the government. Dispersing involves 1.2 billion payments to over 120 million Americans. Accounting involves the tabulation of about $127 billion a day in cash flow performed across 200 government institutions. Now, the vision allows us to look at this broad portfolio of financial activity through a single lens. In each of these portfolios, we're asking, is the process as efficient as it can be? And efficiency not measured simply within the walls of Treasury, but the end-to-end process, beginning with the citizen, through an agency, up to Treasury, the full cycle. Is it efficient? Is it performing at scale? Secondly, does it produce accurate data? Accurate data for the citizen, but also does it provide accurate data that helps us manage in a way that maximizes effectiveness? And finally, is the customer experience, both the agency customer and the citizen customer, is that experience modern, seamless, and secure? Now let me talk about how we're actually using the vision in the day-to-day management of those processes I described. To give a sense of scale, the processes I described involve about 3,500 Treasury employees, probably an equal or greater number of employees in banks, and a very large Federal Reserve footprint, and a total federal expenditure on the order of about $2.6 billion. So a rather large portfolio of activity. What we've set up is something we're calling a cycle of accountability. What we're doing, and the most important aspect of it, is making all of these plans, these goals, and the progress public. We have a website. I'll give you the web address. It's fmvision.fiscal.treasury.gov. We're putting these plans out there. We have an annual report that we generate that measures progress against the plans. The cycle is a very simple one. Every spring, we plant goals in a letter that goes to the CFOs across the government. This year had 12 goals in it. And every winter, we publish an annual report that shows progress. And we intend to do this for the next decade to show progress towards the goal and ultimately the impact of this approach to federal management. Let me give a little example from our progress statement from 2018. One of our goals is to really maximize federal dispersing, making it as efficient as possible. And one of the measures we're looking at is what portion of the $1.5 billion or so federal payments are Treasury dispersed. Currently, the measure is about 87%, but we set a goal to be 95%. And currently, we're working with the Department of Defense. They have chosen to rely on Treasury now for us to do their dispersing, to free them up so they can focus on their mission. And in fiscal 19, we'll be doing about $66 billion of their dispersing, but ultimately by 2022, close to $500 billion of dispersing for DoD. Another goal that we're tracking to is what portion of federal collections are made available to citizens where they can use modern collection methods, modern payment methods, like PayPal, Google Wallet, mobile payments, online bill pay. And the goal we've set for that is to ultimately grow those methods at a rate of about 27% a year. So every year, 27% more federal programs have the option for citizens to pay using these modern payment methods. Another one of the goals is to really promote the use of shared services within Treasury's ARC organization, the Administrative Resource Center, and we're calculating the benefit there, the metric there, and how much our agency's saving by using ARC. And the metric there is cost avoidance. How much would it have cost agencies if they had to pay for their own upgrades individually or their own licenses individually, as opposed to sharing those over the footprint of about 50 agencies serviced by ARC? And that is running at about $108 million a year. And the goal is to accumulate about $600 million of savings over the next 5 years. One of the goals we set in 18 has been accomplished. For those of you who have visited USA Spending, the goal in 2018 was to make federal financial data available in a common sense format. And what was launched in April of this year was something called Your Guide to Federal Finances. It really is a plain English, very easy to navigate site where any citizen can see where his federal tax dollars come from, where they go, and can drill down and get a fair amount of detail to understand federal finance. By the way, I think this example illustrates the power of this very public goal setting and goal reporting process that we're using for the vision. When you set goals publicly and you measure them precisely and define the outcomes very clearly, there is this incredible pressure to get it done. And that's what's happening here, but we've got miles to go. Let me close with a thought going back to this discussion about trust. The citizen's interaction with a government agency shapes his attitude or their attitude about government. And there's now data to prove it. Recently, in a recent study by McKinsey involving 63 government agencies from around the world, they found a very high correlation between the quality of service provided by that agency and the public's perception of the efficiency of that agency and their trust in that agency's ability to achieve its mission. They found, statistically, that those citizens that had a highly successful customer experience were 9 times more likely to believe that the agency was efficient in achieving its mission. So this is really what's driving the vision, getting back to this trust challenge of really using innovation and using modernization to drive not just efficiency and better customer service, but ultimately public trust. There's the website, and it's available to the public. I encourage you to download all the documents. We update regularly. Every month we try to put out a transformation story about an agency that is moving in the direction of the vision. Recently we had a story about Doug Glenn and DOD and their move towards Treasury dispersing. Now I started with a picture of Alexander Hamilton, so let me close with a story about Hamilton that is as relevant today as it was back in 1790. This is from Ron Chernow's biography of Hamilton. And the biography says, quote, "As the first secretary, Hamilton had to devise the rudimentary systems for bookkeeping, checking, auditing, many of which have endured for generations. Hamilton threw himself into the most mundane tasks as if glorifying in the most mundane challenge." I don't know about you, but as somebody who works in finance, those mundane tasks are financial management. And I think Chernow did not understand what Hamilton knew. Hamilton knew that good financial management creates trust. That's why he threw himself into those tasks, and that's why we throw ourselves into the task. Because there's a direct relationship between what we do in creating public trust. Thank you very much.